Is this going to be a Slovak American dream for this player called Sebastian Čederle? I mean, you can say, who's that boy? Well, that boy is 25 years old, so is it a boy? No. Why we didn't hear about him until now? This is a story for American Hollywood film, okay? Of course, if he maybe ends up in the NHL in the end. Who knows? But the NHL scouts are watching him. Let's talk about the Worlds first, yeah. So we go against Sweden, we lose 0-5. But guess who wins all the face-offs? And he's got the percentage. I mean, he was leading and then he was the second, like from the whole tournament. The percentage of the winning face-offs was 87.5%. I mean, whoa! Swedes must be like, who's this guy? And why we never heard of him? And then the first goal scored by Slovakia at the Worlds 2025, who scored it? Do you think AHL stars scored it, like Dvorsky or Honzek? No, it was Čederle. And you know what is even better? As I said, he's 25, so I'm gonna explain to you why you haven't heard of him before. But his first ever game for Slovakia, I don't count U18, but the adults, you know, men. His first ever game, he scores a hat-trick. Not at the Worlds, but just first ever game for Slovakia. No other player, not even Marian Hossa, Peter Bondra, nobody has ever done that. He's the first player ever in Slovakia who scored hat-trick in his first Slovakia start. And then the next game, he scores again. Not a hat-trick, but he had 4 goals in his first ever games for Slovakia. Whoa! I didn't mention that the first goal ever, you know, with the hat-trick, was his first ever shift. And he needed 9 seconds on the ice to score. You know, when we look at the Slovak media, they call him like a superstar from a supermarket. We don't mean it in the offensive way. It's like, look at this guy. He goes through the dirt to get himself a career. This is insane. He played in Sweden, then he played in Czech Republic in the first league, and then he went and played for the second league in Czech Republic. He didn't have a contract anymore, and then he went to Slovakia. He played for Nitra, and it was like, okay. And then the next season for Nitra, they won the title. And guess who was the best goal scorer? Čederle. So in the highest league in Slovakia, Extra League, he scored 24 goals in 54 games. So why we call him a superstar from a supermarket? Well, he doesn't exactly come from a rich background, and he also doesn't know who's his father. He never, you know, met him or whatever. And during the pandemic, he needed money to be able to get a professional preseason. And he didn't have that money. So he actually employed himself in a supermarket for a month to be able to pay for the professional preseason, you know. I mean, if that's not dedication, like, can you imagine these other players who have ego, you know, like, I'm a professional hockey player, I will never go to the super, like, I don't have money, please give me some money, I'm a pro. Well, why don't you go and work in a supermarket if you don't have money? That not only goes for hockey players, but this is also for, you know, artists who complain like, oh, there's no concerts, we don't have money. Well, why don't you go and get the job? So he works at the supermarket, gets the preseason. A couple of years later, he's the best goal scorer of Slovak Extra League and wins the title. Duh. Funny thing, he was not called to Slovakia U18 or U20 only once. And despite having like a point per game when he was under 18. So, you know, corruption alert. So you have a guy who has a point per game, but you don't call him to represent Slovakia. Why? But then finally and eventually you call him, right? And by the way, when you call him, he's the 4th forward center. So he's not even like playing. Guess what? This guy's just a surprise. He has an Olympic medal. He won silver. Oh my God, this is ridiculous. It's a hockey skills. I didn't even know like this existed. It's a hockey skills competition. And he won when he was 15. So now the question is, okay, so the NHL scouts are now watching him, not only because of the Worlds, but also our, you know, Gordon Ramsay, Craig Ramsay, Miroslav Šatan, like, you know, they called some people, hey, we have this guy, want to have a look at him. And obviously the face-offs, the goal that he scored, NHL scouts are watching him. He cannot be drafted, of course, because he's 25. You cannot enter NHL draft. However, you can still get a deal if you want, like if you're a free agent, yes, of course. However, there's not many players, at least not many players I could find that got signed at 25. Like that's a pretty high age, you can say. So it's very questionable. However, it's really an American dream. I mean, this is like so insane. Even for the PR purposes, I would sign him. Like, you work in a supermarket and 5 years later you play in the NHL. Like, what? I mean, like, not just one game, like actually have a career. Because we know it happens with like the beer league goalies and all that. So when they get called in for like one professional game, but I'm talking about like the whole contract. But 25 is a high age, of course. And again, like nobody is saying that he is at the level of the NHL. Maybe he's in the level, you know, for like Swedish league or Finland, but NHL is like a different story. The only player I could find who was actually signed, not the debut in NHL, who was signed at 25 was of Maxim Tsiplakov, who got a deal at 25 years old with New York Islanders. However, he's also grandson of Viktor Tsiplakov, freaking star, so I don't know about this. And other players I could find had their NHL debut at 25, but they got signed at 24. So I couldn't really find anybody else. Like, if you know about anybody else, let me know. So what do you think? Like, how can you shape a player that is already basically shaped? But here we are, like, he's 25, but he already showed like so much determination. He showed that he's not afraid of the dirt, you know, like he's gonna do, it seemed like he's gonna do anything to play hockey. And he doesn't have ego, of course, supermarket, but also he played in the second Czech league. He wasn't like, yeah, I just, you know, like I played in Sweden, like I'm not gonna go for the second Czech league. Like he did. You want me? I'll go there, you know. Crazy. And he's from the same town as Zsigmond Palffy, Skalica. So interesting. What do you think about this guy? I mean, this is an American dream. Seriously. And for more stories like this, subscribe.